Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, let's just jump right into a scenario I think literally all of us know way too well. Picture this. You're on your morning commute. The train is absolutely packed. You're standing there clutching your lukewarm coffee, you casually look up from your phone, and boom, you lock eyes with a total stranger sitting right across from you. And for a split second, the noisy world just kind of stops spinning. By the time you both do that terribly awkward look away at exactly the same time, you are completely, inexplicably hooked. I mean, let's be honest, you're already mentally picking out floral arrangements for the wedding and mutually deciding on a golden retriever before the train even hits the next stop.
So we really have to ask ourselves, is that your soulmate sitting next to the doors, or is it just biology? You know, we all share this deeply embarrassing tendency to over-romanticize an awkward stare. We so desperately want to believe that this intense, sudden rush of affection is destiny tapping us on the shoulder. But the truth? The truth is, this is an incredibly common, deeply awkward social glitch where your brain briefly mistakes a nervous stranger on the subway for your absolute soulmate.
Now, there is actually a word for this incredibly distracting feeling: limerence. It's basically an involuntary state of intense romantic desire. So, that sudden wave of hopefulness and obsession you get from a shared glance, yeah, it is not an ancient prophecy fulfilling itself. It's a highly specific neurochemical reaction. And to understand why a random prolonged glance can trigger it, well, we need to take a look at the somewhat outdated hardware inside our skulls.
Which brings us to Section 1, friend, foe, or flirt.
Let's look at how this builds, because honestly, our obsession with eyes isn't really rooted in romance at all. It's rooted in pure, primal survival. And this perfectly illustrates our internal conflict. Your modern brain sees that sustained eye contact and instantly thinks, oh my gosh, are we getting married? But your primitive brain, the ancient threat detection hardware you're actually running on, is violently scanning the situation thinking, are you going to eat me or mate with me? It's hilarious when you think about it. Your modern brain is picking out wedding rings, while your inner caveman is genuinely worried that the guy in the Patagonia fleece across the aisle is a literal predator. In the wild, eye contact is either an invitation or a threat. Knowing you have been seen is a massive deal for your survival.
And it turns out we have a literal, built-in module in our brains dedicated exclusively to this. According to cognitive researcher Simon Baron-Cohen, it's called the Eye Direction Detector, or EDD. Think of it as an early warning system. This system is constantly, obsessively computing whether there are eyes out there in the crowd, and if so, whether those eyes are looking directly at you.
And a fascinating 2002 study by C. Neil McRae and his colleagues shows exactly how this gaze detection just totally hijacks our cognition. The research shows that eye gaze drives the most basic aspects of person perception. In their experiments, people actually categorized targets way faster, like determining if someone was male or female, if the person in the photograph was making direct eye contact with them. Basically, your brain treats direct eye contact as a highly relevant, top priority stimulus. You process the person faster because to your brain, a stare demands immediate attention.
All right, moving on to Section 2, the 8-second threshold.
So, a passing glance is one thing, right? But when exactly does that glance cross the line into totally short-circuiting your nervous system? Like, how long does a stare have to be to trigger that romantic glitch? Well, the answer, according to researchers who actually tried to quantify this magical feeling, is precisely 8.2 seconds. I know, it's absurd that a specific fraction of a second is the literal difference between a passing thought and a biological meltdown. If you hold eye contact for less than 4 seconds, your brain just logs it as a general observation. But right around that 8.2-second mark, you cross a critical threshold. Your brain completely misinterprets the sustained, unbroken attention as genuine romantic interest.
And the very second you hit that threshold, your body unleashes an absolute flood of powerful neurochemicals. First, boom, a dopamine spike. This is the reward neurotransmitter. It makes you feel euphoric, energized, and gives you that sudden crush feeling. Second, bam, an oxytocin release. This gives you a sudden, completely unearned sense of safety and deep connection with a stranger who, let's face it, might literally just be trying to read the subway map right behind your head. And third, your pupils dilate. This is a totally involuntary body language signal that broadcasts to the world that you like what you see.
And all of this creates what we can call the intimacy loop. It's a powerful state of mutual gaze synchrony. Subconsciously, the stranger notices your dilated pupils. Their brain instantly recognizes that you're interested, they feel flattered, and so their pupils dilate in response. You are both just caught in a localized chemical reaction, literally bouncing biological feedback off of each other on the morning commute.
Let's look at section 3, the 2-minute stare.
So the crucial point here is, if it only takes 8 seconds to spark this intense feeling, what on earth happens if we force it to go longer? Well, to see how easily this glitch is manufactured, let's look at a famously ridiculous 1989 study by Kellerman, Lewis, and Laird. They took random pairs of opposite-sex strangers and just put them in a room. The control group was told to stare at their partner's hands for 2 minutes. The result? Absolutely nothing. 0 sparks. But the test group? They were instructed to gaze into each other's eyes for 2 unbroken minutes. And the result was a dramatic increase in reported feelings of passionate love.
Here is the exact quote from the researchers. Subjects induced to exchange mutual unbroken eye gaze for 2 minutes with a stranger of the opposite sex reported increased feelings of passionate love for each other. 2 minutes! Honestly, it's deeply embarrassing that our profound cinematic love-at-first-sight feeling is basically just a button that can be pushed in a windowless laboratory by staring at a stranger. It is completely 100% independent of actual compatibility, shared values, or, even knowing the other person's name.
Which leads us to section 4, misreading the chemical signals.
So why are we so easily tricked by all of this? Why do we immediately assume it's true love when it's literally just biology? Well, it comes down to how poorly we read our own internal chemical signals. Just look at this comparison. When you experience fear and anxiety, your sympathetic nervous system kicks in, right? Racing heart, fast breathing, sweating, dilated pupils. Now look at arousal and love. Racing heart, fast breathing, sweating, dilated pupils. To your body, being terrified and falling in love are physically identical. Arousal is incredibly indiscriminate. It makes you nervous, and your brain is desperately trying to figure out why you're suddenly sweating on the train. Is it true love, or is it just because the heating on the train is broken?
This misattribution was actually famously proven in Dutton and Aaron's shaky bridge study. Men were asked to cross a high, swaying, totally terrifying suspension bridge. At the end, they were met by a female researcher. Well, the men who crossed the scary bridge were significantly more likely to call the researcher later, trying to initiate a relationship, compared to a control group of men who crossed a low, stable bridge. The men on the shaky bridge felt intense physiological fear, but their brains hilariously misattributed that sheer terror to romantic attraction for the woman. Staring into a stranger's eyes is a highly arousing, nervous situation, and your brain just misreads that nervousness as love.
Mutual eye contact induces a very strong emotional response right in the amygdala, which is the part of the brain heavily involved in processing both threats and emotional reactions. Basically, your brain is simply doing its absolute best to interpret a massive sensory overload. It feels the amygdala light up, it feels the racing heart, it sees the eyes looking back, and it just smashes the big red button labeled soulmate when it probably should just be hitting a button that says, I am currently looking at a person.
So, what should you really take away from all this? Well, true connection takes a lot more than an 8-second stare. It is a beautiful spark, absolutely, but it is not a wedding vow. The biological glitch of limerence is a magnificent magic trick of human evolution. It's designed to capture your attention and force you to evaluate a potential connection. But while eye contact can create a thrilling localized chemical reaction, true intimacy requires shared values, mutual understanding, and actually, talking to each other.
The next time you lock eyes with someone on public transit and feel that overwhelming rush of affection, just smile. Enjoy the dopamine. Know that your primitive brain is just working properly. Check in for threats and mates. But keep your feet firmly on the ground. Which leaves me with one final question for you. Armed with all of this knowledge, who will you awkwardly stare at tomorrow? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.